All right, Tyler, you there? Can you hear us?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can. All right. Holly's got to step out for a quick second. I'm Jared.
Nice to meet you, Tyler.
This is Holly. Now, Murset, is that how you say your last name?
I don't know how you got that right, so I congratulate you.
Hey, my last name's Raybani. Nobody ever gets it right. So it's cool when somebody does. It's Murset, correct?
Correct.
All right. So, all right, Tyler, you're running for unaffiliated CD2, correct?
Correct. I'm running for the House, the U.S. House for Congressional District 2.
Okay.
Celeste Malloy is currently the incumbent.
Yes, she is. So tell us, what's your motivation to run?
Well, that's a good question. So I'll talk about kind of the platform that I'm going to run on in a moment. About 3 years ago, I had this urge, I would call it, from my soul, and just kind of a feeling that I needed to do something. And so back then, I actually started a political podcast, and it didn't go anywhere. You know how hard it is to get a podcast going and to gain a lot of viewers and listeners. So it was difficult, and I got frustrated, and so I just kind of put it on the shelf and said, must not be the time. Well, lately you just kind of watch any bit of news, and you just kind of feel I got it in the back of my mind. I had that strong urge, kind of a spiritual feeling that I needed to do something, and that wasn't to start a failed political podcast. And so I decided to, at the urging of some of my friends, to throw my hat in the ring. And so that's where I am now. So.
So what's the platform? What are you seeking to change? What direction do you want to see our federal government move in?
So I have one campaign promise, and only one, and that is I will vote on bills that come up in Congress as directed by the majority of registered voters in my district. Now, what that means is we will create a software that will allow registered voters in our district. I believe Tooele is in my district. It will allow.
We would be two of your constituents.
Yeah, so it will allow anyone in the district to vote on bills that come up for vote in Congress, and then I will vote with the majority of them 100% of the time. That's basically what it is. It's very simple, but I think it has a lot of power, and I think it will have a lot of power. I was listening in on your previous guests, and you were talking about Republicans. I'm a Republican. I am running as unaffiliated. I thought it would be a better path for me, so I could talk about this idea all the way to November. So I will be on the ballot. I don't have to go through a primary or anything. I qualified via signatures to be on the ballot. So in November, I'll be on the ballot. So I'll be able to talk about this idea of voting with the majority of the people all the way up until then. I think Republicans, generally, I'm talking about elected Republicans, I don't think that they represent us very well.
What?
I know, right?
Well,
So,
you
Tyler,
know what?
Where do you live?
I live in St. George.
Okay.
This software you're talking about, I would like to see this come into creation just so that we can see, because right now out here, we're all like up in arms about the FISA vote that our representative voted yes on. But I would like to see a true accountants, because right now everyone I talk to doesn't like it. But how would it be to see, does everyone not like it, or am I a minority in this group?
Also, if you have the ability to make something like that, are you a software engineer or something?
I'm not a software engineer. I have directed a few smaller kind of software programs into creation. They're just
so you're able to create like an app where people could tune in and give their vote and it would be protected, or would it just be a poll?
No, it wouldn't be a poll. It'd be an actual vote. So let me ask both of you this. Do either of you know that your vote was counted correctly in the last general election?
Well, I know mine was.
I do know. Our county clerk actually.
Oh, because I didn't vote.
Yeah, he's
okay.
I am one of those crazies who I am a truly unaffiliated that I just don't even vote because I've lost trust.
And our county clerk here in Tooele County is phenomenal. Once your signature's been registered, it'll show. But again, it has to also keep your anonymity.
But you know that your vote was
your voter ID.
You know that your vote was received, but you don't know that it was added up in the right columns, do you?
Yeah, I watch it. I'm a poll watcher also, and I actually saw my vote get through into the machine and everything. But I'm a voter number, so it's not my name, but I know my voter ID.
Okay.
Which a lot of people don't. And then I also know at the state convention, I actually was able to follow all my votes based on the voter ID they give me right off the bat, and I got to see how I voted in our local convention.
I know that my vote has been received, but I don't know that my vote was tallied correctly. And that's a big shortcoming of our current voting system. So the software that I'm talking about would initially just be to tell me what to vote on. So we would, first of all, it would only be open to registered voters in our district. We would verify, if they're registered voters, then the state of Utah has gone through the process of vetting them as far as citizenship and eligibility and things like that. So we would verify these citizens, these registered citizens on
their voter ID numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we would open that app up for people. It would be an encrypted app. If you're familiar with Bitcoin, do you talk about Bitcoin much on your podcast?
Oh man.
Yeah, and I recognize they've got blockchain voting is something that's we'll probably see in the next probably 6 years. We've talked to a few people building
with the computers and everything now, and they're learning it. Blockchain, we're going to probably see it sooner than that.
Yeah,
I'm getting feedback. Are you?
There's something going on.
Are you getting feedback on your end?
No. What kind of like a weird audio thing?
Yeah. It's okay. We'll just push through.
I don't hear it.
No. We've on the previous iteration of the show, we've interviewed a guy who that's what he was building a blockchain voting system. And I think we're going to see that, which will be very interesting. And once they do that, the ability to vote from your phone, I mean, it could be something like what you're saying, where you could vote your voice directly to your representative.
Exactly.
Well, and I'm a huge proponent after COVID of saying I would much rather our Congress people, our senators, stay in their own districts, stay at home. Why they have to go to DC all this many times to vote when technology like this exists, where Zoom meetings exist, you can have arguments. And I think that would save a ton of money. But if you're able to create an app that actually lets a regular voter give you their opinion in real time, why wouldn't we branch it out and figure out how to do that using blockchain technology to let regular voters vote in real time on voting day from their phones?
Yeah. So like I was saying, the software that I will create is initially just so I would know how to vote, but I would hope that software could be then, expanded and potentially be used for general elections, because I don't really trust the general election. My point earlier was I know that my vote has been received, but I don't know that it's been counted correctly. Unless you know that through an anonymized way, you can't really say, well, yeah, that election was secure or it wasn't. There's really no way to have a firm opinion on it, in my opinion. So the app would be based on a public the idea of a public ledger, which is, let's say that there's a vote for a Ukraine funding bill or something like that coming up, and the majority of us in this district, we say no. Once that vote is cut off, anyone could download the file. It's anonymized, but you could find your number and make sure that your vote was tallied correctly. You could ask your neighbor, you could ask your wife, your husband. There are ways to verify that those votes have been counted correctly and that they're secure. So it would use kind of off-the-shelf type of technology. It's not something that has to be invented. And there actually are probably already software that does this. So
There's a bunch. And whoever actually establishes this is going to be a millionaire if they can prove that it's safe. And that would be an awesome business venture for you. But when the way you're talking about using it, that's just for your own education. So that you're looking at your constituents right before this vote goes on. And keep in mind, this vote will have 1,000 pages in front of you. So hopefully your regular voters will read through it when they give you the yay or nay. And I'm sure you could highlight some of the things that you want to address about the bill, but then you're just getting an overall chart of yay or nay on how they want you to vote. And you're the one reading it.
right.
So to expand it, I mean, that would be pretty remarkable,
Now,
because a lot of people are trying to go back to paper ballots, but it's also got its problems with timing and how long it takes, but that's how we used to do it.
The problems that we are having right now politically are that political problems. They're not technological problems that can't be solved. There are elections in third world countries that many of us trust more than we do our own elections, and that's a sad state of affairs. You may have already
2020 gave us a good reason to not trust our own elections,
right.
huh?
So you may have already kind of gathered this idea that I'm bringing forth, which actually came from a friend of mine. He wrote, his name is J.J. Dewey. He wrote a book called Fixing America. And so that's where this idea of voting with the majority came from. And I'm running on my own and kind of at his urging also. This idea to vote with the majority of the people is not destined or meant to just remain with me. So the software that we'll create, once we get enough momentum, once we get enough press out there, hopefully there will be others like myself who go, ooh, that's really interesting. Because I don't want to run. I don't want my name out in the public. I'm not a typical politician. I'm here in my closet. I don't have a big bankroll behind me. This is something done against my own better judgment, but I'm doing it because I felt like it was something I needed to do. So the idea is meant to go and be to spread everywhere. Anywhere where you see a place where the voice of the people is not being heard. And unfortunately, most of the time that's with a Republican. The Republicans, they talk a big game. Oh, we're going to cut spending. We're going to do this or that. When was the last time any sort of spending has been cut on the national level?
Hold on, give me a minute. I got to dig deep. Way deep.
All right.
I mean, the last time we paid off our debt would have been, that was under Eisenhower.
What's your
And the
website?
last time an actual spending was cut was when Clinton went after welfare.
Yeah,
Well, he balanced the budget, but I don't think he
we had a budget
military
surplus for, I don't know, it was a short time, but it was actually because of we had a majority Republican Congress, and through Newt Gingrich and all of that we were able to have at least a surplus for a short time.
2 years, if I remember.
They balanced the budget so that everything was accounted for. Hey, what's your website, Tyler?
My website, tylermurset.com.
Well, that's easy.
Yeah, except for my last name is like nobody spells it right.
M-U-R-S-E-T.
M-U-R-S-E-T.
Right.
The only thing I found on
S-E-T or A-T?
M-U-R-S-E-T.
Okay.
Is it the Substack?
So the Substack, that's my newsletter. I should have a website at tylermurset.com.
Okay.
Is it not pulling up?
I'm finding a whole bunch of Substack.
Well, the website is tylermurset.com. The Substack will get you kind of in the door.
So tell us, when you're running unaffiliated, who have you been reaching out to get your message out? What's been your playbook? Because this has got to be difficult. He found it. This has got to be kind of difficult when, you're unaffiliated, but you have, I'm assuming, the Republican platform values. So you've got a lot of your neighbors and people who probably are dying to hear your message. Like how have you been getting your message out?
Well, primarily is through word of mouth right now. So in order to get on the ballot as an affiliated, I had to get a certain number of signatures, which I did primarily through friends and family, people in my neighborhood, people in my church, and things like that. So this is kind of, I had a bunch of family issues happen the last couple months. I had to kind of take a pause on the campaign for a little while, but this is kind of a kickoff. So I appreciate you contacting me to come on your podcast. Now I'm going to start doing kind of daily little vlogs, 5-minute, 10-minute, videos and things on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook, things like that. I'll be doing things in the community. So it is kind of, I'm under no illusion that I have a real strong chance, even though I felt like I had a spiritual prompting to do that. It doesn't mean that I'm necessarily going to win. But the message is voting with the majority, and that needs to be heard.
Right.
Like I was alluding to earlier, I don't think elected Republicans represent us very well.
Yeah, they've forgotten the Republicanism part of being a Republican.
Well, and the truth is, in DC, the line is so blurred between what a Republican and a Democrat is anymore that it's like it's exhausting for local people to watch what's happening in DC and even comprehend how are they doing this to us. And they're supposed to be representing us, and they forget who they work for. And it's such a terrible line. You don't know who's who. No.
And, with this type of idea that I'm bringing is voting with the majority, that vote will be very public. Because let's say, on that hypothetical bill we talked about earlier, well, those vote tallies will be public, and so will my vote right next to it. So there's not going to be any sort of, well, how is he going to vote this time? Or what did he do last night? Like it's right there. It'll be all in the public. So this can help. A lot of people talk about term limits, which could be helpful, but an idea like this could make term limits something that we don't even need to talk about anymore.
Obsolete. And honestly, if it was something like this, you could send anyone there.
Exactly.
You could take literally anyone. You could say, homeless Joe down on the corner, we're going to give that boy a job. And you take him down, you get him an ill-fitting plaid suit, and you send him to Washington. And he just says,
that's kind of how our founders did it.
My people
they never
want
did it
this.
to make careers out of it. They did it as a service. That's why they were called public servants, representing their people.
Right.
Now, you're welcome to use this show, and you're welcome to clip whatever and edit and post. You're welcome to use as much as you can. We share on all the outlets. And you are our last guest. So, if you go in and just want to share your portion of the show and clip it, and
I'll be sending
everywhere.
you a link. Okay. I'll be cutting you up.
Thank you. That would be awesome.
You'll have a standalone.
You're welcome to do that. I hope that you're finding ways to reach out to voters. I know there's a registered voter list you can usually purchase from your county clerk that'll give you at least those in your county and other districts you'll cover. You can get registered voters, but you only get addresses. You don't get phone numbers. But if you can get volunteers, and he just pulled up your website, it's a beautiful website.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're going to need donations. And so people, please understand it. Get to know this gentleman, get to read through his website and the values he's talking about, the platform and the ideas. And if you get behind him, please consider donating, because candidates running unaffiliated don't have the power of their local parties or the state parties backing them. They need grassroots backing and volunteers that are willing to knock on doors and, donate and create yard signs or create a buzz in businesses. I mean, something like this and your idea would be great if you could get some software companies to back you and to try to help. Right now, election integrity is the top of everybody's mind. Yes, we've got immigration issues, and yes, our economy is dying, but election integrity is so important because 2020 woke everybody up. Like, they went to bed at 10 o'clock at night knowing we had a winner. And the next morning, in certain key states, is all it took.
We got a loser.
We got a loser. And that right there should scare the hell out of every American, because now they're talking about letting undocumented Democrats vote. And the truth is, there's nothing to stop them if we don't get this under control. We've got to have voter IDs. You still got to keep people anonymous. So a random number that everyone is assigned. But this seems so simple. And I mean, I've even told him, it would be so. Could you turn that
Someone's
off?
saying they're sending us comments over here.
Okay.
So I'm trying to get there.
So sorry about this. If you could get, I would want to put video mics on every congressman and senator, and actually have them on video for all the work they do for the service of the people. Can you imagine how many people would tune in to see exactly what gets said in those dark rooms, in the smoke-filled rooms, when deals are being made with our representatives? I think it would be pretty great.
Yeah, and to your point about just picking a bum off the street, it could end up being like that. But I think in the beginning, you would want somebody who could talk about, the ideals of maybe the Republican Party, or why a bill meets certain and is under a certain number of principles that we understand, economic principles. There's so many things that go on right now that are just pure emotion. And we have to fund this country, or we have to fund that country, and it's all just tugging on our heartstrings, and there's very little logic about any of it.
Yeah, it does seem like it seems like Washington D.C. is running with a goal, and that goal doesn't even take into account that there's a nation living beneath it, let alone that they're going to work towards benefiting that nation. And so you're right. Like we're going to go fund all these countries, and even though it's a split or it's unpopular or whatever else, we're just going to do it. So that's why I don't vote. It just makes me feel like it doesn't matter if I do. I could vote in my dream candidate. They'll get in there, and they're going to end up doing something that I don't want. And then you'll see them when you get into the mud of it. They refrain from voting on times when it's something that's super unpopular with their people back home, and it still gets passed. Like they go into a meeting and they say, all right, Billy, you don't have to vote this time. It's still going to pass.
Right.
And we know this will put you in jeopardy on your next election.
Right. Well, I'm going to do my best to get you to vote for me. I think that with this idea of you would actually have some sort of ownership of your vote, and you would know that it would actually count toward what the representative would be doing. And that's where there's so much disenfranchisement in the world, and in our country especially. People just are they're just like, what does it matter? Just like you're saying. And we need to be able to bring that. We need to be able to have a direct input in what our government says and does. And that's been sorely missing. And we need to do something.
So I'm looking over your website, and I see on your platform, you do go into the invasion basically on our borders. And you're talking about a deportation of those who are here illegally. I know Donald Trump is talking about mass deportation. And of course, there's a lot of things that would go along with that, and that would cost money and this and that. But I think if a bill was written properly to find out who's here, because that's going to be the hard part, right? Coming off a regime who've let all these people come through. We have no record of who's who's here, who's not.
Ooh.
How do we deport them? And I'm wondering with your platform talking, and you also say that the citizens should come first, foreign aid should be largely eliminated. A lot of people feel that way because we are watching our Congress fund walls being built in Ukraine. Our Congress is funding medications for other countries, and we're on a medication shortage. We're seeing a lot of things like that actually need to be addressed, but that's going to cost money for deportation. How do you see making that happen on the deportation?
This may now, first of all, I'll preface this by saying, of course, I'll vote with the majority of how those in my district will vote. So I want to preface that, but I do have opinions on it, and would suggest to the people on how to vote on any political bill. This may blow your mind. I'm gonna say something good about Mitt Romney for a second. Please don't hold it against me.
That's okay. No, and a lot of people in our county like Mitt Romney.
So when he was running for president, and this is my vague recollection of this, he had an idea of people deporting themselves, and the way that we do that is through a stricter enforcement of employee law, and making it so that employees they can't hire illegal immigrants.
Right, and the government can't fund them.
And shut off benefits.
Right.
I've been saying that forever.
So when Trump came in, there was just the rhetoric of Trump talking about them. Quite a few people went back to their country on their own. So I don't like the idea of like rounding people up and doing it by force. I think people should be able to make that decision on their own, but we shouldn't be. First of all, the welfare state on its own is much too large, and then we're in certain states like California and New York, they're giving people debit cards with thousands of dollars on it. They're paying their rent. Like why them? Why not some veterans? Why not somebody else? Why is it always other people? Why is it always other people before us? And so it wouldn't be necessarily, flying people out on an airplane. Although those, I would make an exception. Those violent criminals and things along those nature, I think we should forcefully deport them. Illegal immigrants in and of themselves have violated the law by coming across, but I don't think it's necessarily a violent crime. And I think that we should largely do that through a stricter enforcement of employment law or employment.
Yeah.
A lot of countries have unloaded their prisons and sent them over the border.
Cuba did that in the 90s. Cuba unloaded their insane asylums
and that's the problem.
Prisons, and
we don't know who's here.
Sent them over.
And we don't know who's capable of committing violent crimes until they actually do it. But I think by essentially suffocating their ability to make money by cutting down on businesses who hire. I mean, we've talked about, every person coming across the border should come through legally for starters, but they should also, if they should have a job waiting for them, a company ready to sponsor them. So for the seasonal workers, and so that we know who they are. So either fingerprinted, now you can do retina scans or DNA swabs, but we know who they are. We have a record of them, whether or not Mexico or somewhere else, Japan or wherever they're, China may not have a record on them, but we then know who they are, right down to their blood type and everything. If they're sponsored when they're over here, they should be given a chance to receive citizenship if that's what they want, by passing citizenship tests and learning the language. And we should make it a glamorous thing to be a citizen of this country and a privilege, but they don't qualify for aid. I don't think we should let people who have babies here on the whim have American citizens and then give them aid forever either. There's got to be a way. And I think you're right. If we did have businesses say, they're actually going to pay a penalty for hiring someone because they're paying them under the table. We all know that. But if they get caught, there should be significant penalties to them, if not even legal penalties where they can go to jail. But then also we've got to cut off the welfare state to people who are not legally citizens of this country. Because with that card they're getting, not only they're getting some sort of a green card so they can work, it gives them a social security number. Once that number is established, now they can vote. And if nobody is babysitting at the gate to tell us that is a temporary, or that is a person who came over illegally, if that doesn't get any type of discrimination there to where we go, okay, this is a legal person, this one isn't, our voting is dead. There'll be no such thing as as integrity. We become a third world country at that point.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think
coming through the green card stuff and all of the benefits that are being given to them, more than even our veterans get, more than our single moms who are working 2 jobs. I mean, getting better health care than most Americans can afford. It's insane, and it's got to be dealt with.
Yeah, I agree. And just so people understand, it's not like I'm anti-Mexican. My wife is half Mexican. I served my mission for my church in California speaking Spanish. Some of my best friends are Mexican. It doesn't have to do with somebody being Mexican. It's somebody coming here illegally and not following the law. My wife's grandmother, she's an immigrant, and she and her husband, they did it legally, and they came here and they worked extremely hard, and they did it the right way. And they're those type of people that come here and do it legally and do it the right way, they get resentful of those who just come across, and that creates resentment for us too. I mean, like we were saying, it's like, why do they get a Visa prepaid card or whatever? Why not me?
Well, the law should be applied to every single person. And my husband's family, his mother was an immigrant, and the one thing she did when she got here was acclimated. She wanted to be American so bad. She refused to even speak German, which I wish she would have, because then he would have learned at a young age. I think that's highly important to teach children multi languages. But the acclimation part, wanting to be an American and not just assuming that it's something that it's a right. It's not. It's a privilege, and people don't look at it like that.
Well, another potential portal for this, and I think Trump talked about this his first term, that a lot of people come here and work illegally, and then they send most of their money back home. There could be
it's the second largest. It's part of their GDP.
Yeah.
In Mexico,
so
it's one of their largest contributors.
There could be a potential avenue to go there, but just overall, the idea of voting with the majority, it can create a lot of it can solve a lot of issues. Let me put it that way. We have what I call regulation without representation. We have these giant organizations in the government. You have the CDC, the FDA, all of these 3-letter organizations, right? I'm sure that both of you have talked about those before.
Absolutely.
I don't even know how they were created. Some of these organizations, I don't know that the process to create them was followed in the proper process, but that's beyond the point. They're already here. You have bureaucrats going and basically doing whatever they want. They have such latitude, and how are we supposed to have a check on them? I believe that the representatives that are elected should take a much more active role in regulation. We should any sort of regulation that comes down the pipe should be voted on by Congress, and I know that would slow down quite a few things. But I think
that's actually what the Constitution dictates, that laws are made by Congress and not by unelected bureaucrats.
Exactly, and so they have, under the banner of their 3-letter agency, they go and do all these things that take away our freedoms. The whole vaccine thing, that was a big eye opener for a lot of people, and I would support, as it's mentioned on my website, I support people being able to choose for themselves what type of medications that they take. There's such a strong lobby behind the pharmaceuticals and actually big agriculture also, that the people don't have a chance right now. We're getting poisoned and we don't even know it. And how much 40 years ago, 50 years ago, most people were thin, they were in shape, they were healthy. Now the majority of people have a little extra, including myself.
Well, they were growing their own food. They all had gardens. They had local milk farmers, were dairy farmers.
And there wasn't all the chemicals in the food that the FDA allows.
They're injecting mRNA right now into meat. Yeah.
That's why we can't sell our stuff in most of Europe.
I'm really worried about what you said about them putting the mRNA in our food, because will they label it, or will the companies who create these mRNA things, will they lobby Congress so that it doesn't have to be labeled?
You know they're going to lobby, and here's why you vote. This is like,
I don't know. I
you
just
gotta
want to
buy
say
your
real
meat
quick,
local.
Pfizer, we love you. We're open to be a sponsor, or for you to sponsor
Nope.
us. We'll have commercials.
I don't
We'll
even
be
want their
just like
money.
CNN. Every break brought to you by Pfizer.
And then we faint.
No, you'll get
I'm
you'll get
serious.
the saline,
When they
you'll get the
said,
saline shot, and everyone else will get the real one.
yeah, when they were talking about the mRNA, putting it in the animals, that's when I started to just really freak out, because my husband and I avoided any of that. We had COVID, we had the antibodies, why would we get the shot when, we've already had it, our body knows how to fight it. So this spike protein getting injected into animals, that's our food supply. And you don't know which animals or which farms. So if anything was ever more about buying local from your local cattle ranch, from your local poultry, getting it local where they're not injecting animals like that. I mean, even Chick-fil-A just said we can't even afford to use organic chicken anymore that's not injected with hormones, because the supply and demand is out of control. They can't even afford it. There's so much demand for it in the country. And that should tell everybody, hey, you should start your own chicken farm and not inject chickens with stuff, because there's going to be people who don't want that in their bodies. But that's where we're headed. And yeah, other countries like Europe, they won't buy a lot of our products for that reason, right? Because
they won't. Not allowed.
You compare one product in Europe and one in the United States, you look at the ingredients, and the ingredients in the United States are twice as long. They do that.
And you can't pronounce it.
You can't pronounce it.
So many of those things are actually designed to just get us hooked on those and make it taste so good that we crave it again. We crave it and we crave it. And Europe, we tend to criticize Europe quite a bit for a lot of the things that they do. But in that regard, I think that they may be,
they're good on food. They've just given up on existence.
Well, and high fructose corn syrup is at the top of almost every product made out of America, and they don't let that happen in Europe.
God, you brought up Bitcoin and HFC. Dave's head exploded.
Yeah. Our partner, he loves Bitcoin. So and I want to get into Bitcoin. You actually want it to be an alternative and non-taxed, which I love that. It shouldn't be taxed. Every dollar you get to spend on things you like, you've already paid taxes on that. So if you do invest yourself into Bitcoin, the government hates that, because now you're getting rid of the need for the Fed, and you've got money that isn't traceable by the federal government or the IRS. So why are more citizens? Well, it got expensive overnight. That's one reason.
Well, the halvening happened, so yeah.
For a fact the government is going to go after Bitcoin. I mean, they're already putting the process up.
Well, they did. They did in 2018 when the FBI released, what was it? They released, was it 3 million worth of Bitcoin on the market, and it dumped it that night? I'd have to dig up the particulars, but yeah, the feds did a release on Bitcoin.
I'm talking about the legislators are trying to figure out a way how they can tax it or monitor it.
That seems to all that Elizabeth Warren is doing nowadays is talking bad about Bitcoin. They're trying to create a federal kind of Bitcoin, a federal, what do they call it? CBDC.
Yeah, CBDC.
I can't remember what that stands for.
Government-backed digital currency.
Government-backed digital currency.
Or central bank digital currency. Either one's same thing.
I mean, you do know this. Bitcoin, it can be tracked, but it's anonymous. So Bitcoin is freedom money, basically. It's a hedge against inflation. If you understand how Bitcoin works, there's a fixed supply of it that will ever be, and there's only so much that will go out. Now, it is important to understand that you can buy any fraction of Bitcoin. So just because it is expensive, like per Bitcoin, you can still buy a fraction of it. And that's important for people to do. I think it's incredibly important for people to have some protection against the inflation that we're experiencing right now. I mean, you just look at the debt. What is it, 35 trillion right now?
Yeah. Well, hold on.
Yeah, we had the debt
I
clock
can't say
up
yes.
just a
There
minute
was
ago.
there was a second between when you said that and when I said yes, and so
it went up
I
In 4
could
years,
easily
it'll be
be proven
40
wrong in a
$1 million. It went up $1
second.
million in that second or whatever.
Oh, $1 billion at least.
So
I mean, it's if we just were on the debt clock, that's why it's so up in our minds, because the person before you, we went to the debt clock. It looks like it's in fast forward. We're at 35 trillion. In 4 years, we'll be at 42 trillion.
there's going
And
to be
interest is over $1 trillion.
there's going to be no way for us to pay that off by saving and doing. Something's got to give, and when that gives, Bitcoin may be a safe haven. It could be. I don't know.
Unless they do a big EMP and destroy the internet, and then there's no such thing as Bitcoin anymore.
Well, Bitcoin will still exist. That's too detailed for this conversation. We're talking just kind of big ideas about Bitcoin. I think that Bitcoin and most, I think capital gains tax should be eliminated, first of all.
Absolutely.
Just as you were alluding to and mentioning, we earn this money. It's taxed. We go to the store, sales tax. We buy a house, property tax. We finally earn some money in the stock market. We take it out to buy another house or to buy whatever, taxed. At every turn there's a tax. And
well, they only tax good decisions.
And then you die.
But they don't tax if you're committing fraud or crime, unless it's to compete with them. They don't tax you.
Yeah,
They don't
they
care
tax
about that.
you.
And then you put the whole banking system at risk.
Asset
These
forfeiture.
banks, and then no, they're too big to fail. Now we got to save them. So then you get a bailout
and a bonus,
and then it's just the incentives are totally reversed on what it should be. The government instead of they reward the wrong things. And they penalize the wrong things. It's just like government; they do things in the reverse of what they should do. They penalize savings. They penalize earning. They penalize everything that we do. It's a disincentive for us.
Yep.
But it's the Fed. The Fed controls everything, and the government does not control the Fed.
They incentivize negative behavior. And they de-incentivize positive behavior. They de-incentivize someone who wants to live a frugal life and save,
be debt-free.
And they incentivize people who want to run up debt. It's just the way we work. It's
but Elizabeth
terrible.
Warren will tell you that Bitcoin's only for people who want to sell drugs, want to commit hits. Like seriously, the Bitcoin is the pedophile's dream because they can buy child pornography and all this other stuff and transport humans and trafficking and all of that. And it's like, because it's untraced, it's got this terrible cloud around it, which makes me more curious because I'm like, if the government hates something this bad, there's got to be something to it. But a lot of people, I don't think, understand it or know what the actual outcome looks like in the long term.
Did you see Thomas Massey? He's a congressman from, I don't remember what state he's from, but he came up with
Kentucky.
an end the Fed bill just in the last couple of days.
Yeah, we just heard that.
So that's that's probably not going to go anywhere, but it'll be interesting to see who talks against it. I mean,
it's exactly what I want to see.
The people who are against ending the Fed, I think they're being. First of all, I don't think they fully understand how money is created. I don't think they understand that Congress has outsourced the creation of money to the Federal Reserve, and they don't understand. They said, well, if we end the Fed, then everything will blow up. Everything's going to blow up anyway. We're already 35 trillion in debt. The government should be able to issue its own currency.
Absolutely, and issue its own I don't know, percentages and interest rates and make it so people can afford housing and people can afford to pay their debts off without, I mean, people in debt are in an endless train of debt that'll never go anywhere because the rates are so astronomical. And yet the people are punished, not the banks, for doing those type of loans.
Now, this may be, you mentioned the government setting the rate. I'd actually be in favor of the market setting the rates for interest rates. I think
Free market.
I think when the government or the Fed, whenever somebody tries to dictate it's basically price fixing. Okay, whenever you have price fixing, when you set a ceiling on what something could be or a floor, it creates distortions in the market. And so, as we see that with all the bubbles that we see, there's in 2008 the real estate bubble. There's a kind of a bubble going on right now that's just ready to burst. I think that there should be some market forces brought into interest rates a lot more instead of the going, oh well, let's raise it at.
But the problem is the government can print money, and that's a problem. If you make money printing private, who owns that?
Well, that's not the interest rate. Isn't well, technically it is.
If banks set their interest rates based on their own banks and their own home loans and all of that in the free market, the competition would be amazing. But you would have to cut off any spending outside of the United States by the federal government because, they have to print money to give that money away.
Well, you don't have to. You just can't have fractional reserve banking. So your banks would be more wholesome. It's our fractional reserve banking that allows them to do that, where they could lend up to, they only have to have 10% on the books of what they can lend.
No, I'm talking about like to give money to Ukraine and stuff and the multi-billions of dollars.
Oh yeah.
Our country prints money to do that.
That'd have to go away. But like, I like that idea of a free market. And I would much rather see each bank set its market cap and according to what they need. Because say our area might need housing. And if a bank said, you know what, we need housing in our local area to boost our economy, whatever, we're going to lower the rates on housing development and construction, but we don't need any more, whatever else. So to get a loan to do a startup on that, we can raise it. No, that's an interesting thought. I would like to see the market move.
I'd like to make an additional point. Your previous guest was talking a lot about the campaign donations that his opponent, the incumbent, was doing. With this idea that I'm talking about, which I call citizen representatives, by the way, the idea is as us as citizens can be partial, kind of co-legislators with the representative. This idea of citizen representatives coming in, we can make it so campaign finance doesn't have nearly as much importance as it does now. Because if you go, well, that guy is voting with the majority every single time, first of all, the amount of money that I would have to raise to beat someone else, why would anyone else run against me? Why would somebody go, oh well, no, he's voting with the majority every time. I would like to vote with the people who are not the majority.
I'll tell you why. Because if they have money, they're going to affect how the majority votes by marketing to your majority.
Yeah.
The thing is, the reason the United States is not a democracy is because it doesn't work. It will with a small district, but how I would get your system, if I had the money and I had the backing, I'd advertise against you all the time. And then your majority changes, their mindset changes. That's what you worry about with majorities, counting on majority votes. So someone like another candidate would say, well, he votes with majority, but what are these majorities? Where are they getting their information? Where are they learning? So if you have it with this, where you're giving your information on the bill to these people, and you're basically handing them the bill, hoping they read it, because these bills are 1,000 pages and they've got stuff in there for every single thing. So you may be voting on the majority, but that bill could also be dropping money from Social Security or not paying our military, but it does really good over here and really good over here. And it's only a yes or no vote. So that vote, you're going to get the majority vote, They may want to divide it up line by line, but you don't have that option in Congress.
I think what it's trying to get at is there is going to be influence on the vote that the representative makes, regardless of how it goes down, right? You either go from trying to influence one person, the representative, so that's a surface area of attack, so to speak, of just one person, versus there are approximately 700,000 people in the second district. So you go from trying to convince one person, which can be very easily done. You look at the campaign donations of any of the people who are in Congress now. It can take as little as $5,000 or $10,000 for people to flip the vote. You go from that amount to trying to change the minds of 700,000 people. That's a lot harder.
And well, not to mention, it's also maybe a benefit for those people, because what if Northrop Grumman said, you know what, to buy all these people over, we're building a park in all the communities, or we're going to donate money to all this, whatever. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I like where your head's at with that, because that makes them responsible to the people that they're going to be taking tax money from.
Right. And I think that we can reduce a lot of the corruption that there is in the government right now just by, being a little bit more transparent, voting with the people. But, how many votes, if you look at the Republicans, so many of the Republicans in Congress are just basically Democrat light. And it's just like we're going off a cliff. Democrats are going 100 miles an hour. Republicans are going like 75. So it's not like there's not that much difference in the actual elected representatives. But I think that the platforms are very different. If I got this going in Utah with the 4 representatives and potentially the 2 senators, we could pretty much guarantee a strong Republican vote for 20 to 30 years, as long as we don't get taken over by another, move-ins from other states that dilute the voices of Utah.
I think if you designed this, there would no longer be parties, which is even better.
Yeah.
The person wouldn't come there as the Republican from Utah. They would come there
How would you force everyone to use it?
As the representative. You wouldn't force them, but I'll tell you this, you get 5 Congress people using it, and there are people saying, look, he votes the way we want. That will, within 5 years, that will be the benchmark for if people get elected.
I'd love to see
all it has to do is be public
solution of this, and to see that it could actually work without getting compromised or hacked and again, I would hope that every item on that bill would be inputted in before people would vote, because that's if you could make anything happen in Congress, I think you would push a bill that says every bill we vote on has to be one page, every issue, so that you're not handed a 1,000-page bill and have to vote yes or no on it, because that's where they get you. Yeah. You get 72 hours to read 1,000 pages, and mixed in with all the stuff you want is all the stuff you don't want. And if they made it 1-page bill each and your constituents were reading it along with you, I love the idea. But if it's 1,000-page bill and you don't have that on the website that people read, because most people won't even read it. So you highlight the point of what each page is and give people an overview. I'd love to see it work.
I think the hard part would be so let's say in your district you have 7,000 people, and of that 700,000 people, I'm using a number, 7,000 people, and of that probably if you're including all people, so probably 4,000 are registered voters. And of that, on stuff like this, only, what do you think, about 7 people vote and actually pay attention. I think that'll be the hard part, to sum out to suss out how to get more people there to pay attention and vote on each particular bill. If they did, that would be one way that people would drive these omnibus bills out of existence, because everyone, I'm sure, even the Democrats, would get on board saying, look, they're not happy about Israel being tied in with an omnibus bill. The progressives aren't anyway. The Republicans aren't happy with any foreign spending being tied in. So they all tell them no, until eventually the only time a bill gets brought to the floor is when it's a smaller bill, when it's a 5 pages or less, or single issue. No, I like the idea. I do.
You're asking them to govern themselves, voting for term limits or voting for one-page bills, and we already have proven that they won't do that.
Oh,
until we
I'm
find a
talking
way
about
to get them out.
the software. I like the idea of the software.
Oh, me too. I would hope it can be hacked, and I would hope that it would be purely informative so that you're educating your populace.
If it's blockchain and there's enough of it, it can be hacked, but the expenditure to hack it is beyond all recognition. Just you spread the blockchain far enough, get it on enough nodes, it can be hacked, but you have to hack 1,000 whatever computers at the same time.
We should let our guest talk now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
We don't have very much time left.
Okay.
So what do you want to go over? Like, what would you like to tell the people?
Well, just to your point of, there are approximately 700,000 people in our district. Yeah, only a percentage of those would vote on bills. But I think as more and more people learn that they can have a more direct influence in what happens, I think more people will get involved. I do think it is important that bills be kind of more single issue bills. They're just so much like you were talking about that they get thrown in there that don't have anything to do with the main purpose of the bill, and it's just like, I'll scratch your back and you scratch mine, that type of thing.
It's true. That's why many of our Congress people, Celeste included, she's going to get raked over the coals for voting for a bill. But also what you don't see is the other items in that bill, and that she could get positives on or negatives on or whatever. And I think that that's the problem with the US government right now, is that it's all so forced that not even our representatives can read through it. I mean, Mike Lee says he won't read it. He won't even vote on a bill that he can't read.
Well, not to get too off subject, but I think AI will have something to say about this in the future. Elon Musk has already talked about this, putting these bills through his AI and helping us understand what's really going on in those bills and distilling them down to what's going on, because they're just too complicated. I mean, these bills, they're not written by the people in Congress. They're written by lobbyists, and then they're just brought as a package. And then, here, I've got this. It's the defense contractors, it's big pharma, it's all these big conglomerates that write these bills. It's not the Congress people, by and large. I think that in kind of summary, we need to do something, and we need to get the people more involved. And I believe that the idea of citizen representatives that I'm bringing forth to vote with the majority of the people, especially in Republican districts right now. The Republican people don't have representatives that by and large represent them. There are a very few handful. I ask this question quite a bit. How many politicians do you trust? When I was gathering signatures, and my joke was, how many politicians do you trust? 0, 1, 2, or 3. It's like we can count on one hand how many politicians we trust, and that should not be so. I would like to make it so politician is not a dirty word anymore. Like, I'm going to be working for you. I'm going to be working for the majority.
I trust AOC to make a fool out of herself at least once a week.
Well, it's what we trust them to do.
Okay.
Yeah,
do you have a prototype of this technology made yet?
No, it's just. I mean, like I said, they're off the shelf kind of deals. I've got a couple of gentlemen in my ward that are in my. I don't know if you're LDS or not. It doesn't matter, but they're in my church that are programmers and they're developers, and they're helping me kind of come up with the framework of this software. And that'll be one of the things I talk about in my daily vlog or my videos, is the kind of the development of this software, because I want it also to be open source. There will be a potential to monetize it with elections and things like that, but I want the code to be open so that people can see that what we're putting in there is legitimate, that it nothing is 100% unhackable, but we're going to make it as close as we can to that. And with the, like I said, with the public ledger, that eliminates a lot of the uncertainty about the elections. When we can download the election file and we know that from once that is ended, nothing is being added to or being subtracted from that vote. That'd be a huge thing. I mean, just knowing that vote is done and it's nothing can happen to it after that gets us about half of the way there. Now the other half is making sure that only the right people are voting, that only registered voters in our district, that their votes are not being changed. There will be encryption and things like that. So there are a number of things that we need to take a look at with this software, and I think it can make a huge difference.
I like Vivek's idea, Ramaswamy, when he said voting day should be a holiday. Everyone gets off work. It's a federal holiday. And I know a lot of people would like to get back to paper ballots, which that's how we did it years and years and years. That requires a lot of volunteers. That requires a lot of time and attention done by the people. But I think we've gone into a place where people don't have time or don't make time anymore for politics. It is a dirty word. A lot of people vote based on what they see on their nightly news or what they see in commercials during their favorite shows. And if they're streaming, they're not even seeing those unless it's like YouTube. So I think that going into a different way of getting to the people, I mean, this is something you should definitely develop. This is something you could monetize in a good way. And if it works, and if you can prove that it isn't hackable, or that it is a direct conduit, and it's easy for people to read through and understand the issue, so they're voting educated with an educated vote rather than just what sounds good at the time. I think you could really have something here. I'd be curious to see what your prototype looks like.
Yeah, and then I mean, just kind of the software is just an ends to the means. I mean, it's dual purpose. It's to tell me how to vote, so I know what the majority actually wants. It's not a poll that can be manipulated or skewed. The polls can be. You can ask questions in a certain way and get whatever answer that you want. But a bill that comes up, I mean, anyone can download a bill that's up, and they can read for it themselves. So it's a yes/no deal. But my point is that we're getting more of the actual will of the people with this. It's not just a poll. It's not just putting our finger in the wind and trying to figure out which way the wind is blowing. It's a very direct way to know that. And
I just from my experience, I've had Congress people. Chris Stewart was one, and I guess Celeste too. She's only been in a handful of months, but he would do town halls every quarter and bring up issues and things that were upcoming, and then votes he'd made in the past. And you would be stunned at how many people bother to tune in, where they can ask questions, where they can learn. It's very few people. I'm trying to think of how many people would download a bill besides us, because we're nerds, and read through it. We got to get that fixed in Congress to make it one bill.
Those people who took the time to do it would have a voice with this, because they would be getting on his thing and voting. And that's what I was saying a minute ago.
But how many would get on and vote no? And
doesn't matter.
The majority says no, and they have him vote no.
Doesn't matter. The people who are educating themselves, as far as I'm concerned, are the people who count.
Right, but he can't differentiate between who's educating and who's not.
The person who went on and read the bill.
I'm saying, if he had this option and I go in and I'm like, I'm not reading this, just vote no. You read it and go, wow, this is really good. I've read through everything. This is fantastic. And you vote yes. But a majority of people are like, I'm not reading it, and vote no.
Then they can get pissed
Now
off at it
they
for
get
not
mad at
voting.
him.
But the people who apply it are the ones, because he can say, hey, look, I only went off the way you guys voted.
And as long as it's
So
open
if people don't like it,
yeah, as long as it's open to every registered voter in the district, it doesn't like I can't worry about who is educated on the bill and who is not. Like it, as long as it's available for anyone who is a registered voter to do it, then that's the important thing. I think it would be incumbent on us to try to drive engagement, try to make it more interesting. Or and like you're saying, it's like once you know that you have more of a say in it, people are going to get more involved. And I don't like I said, I don't want to do this. This is not something that I was like dreaming. Oh, I want to be a politician. I don't want to be a politician. You can kind of see that when this game starts gaining traction, a lot of people in power are not going to like it. Like I had a lot of fear about running, and it took me quite a long time to actually come to the decision to do it. And so this is going to upset a lot of apple carts, and that's just the way it is. We need something to change, and this is a way to do it. And voting with the majority, using citizen representatives, using a voting system that can eventually be used in general elections. It's going to be it's a start. I mean, my website, you go to tylermurset.com. I'm accepting donations now. That's my plug. And
Excellent.
I'm doing.
I wonder if you could sell this to maybe counties and cities first to get a kickoff on it.
Yeah.
To make a return
for the software.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure if it's proven that it would work, yeah, this is a monetized thing for sure.
Yeah. Sell it to HOAs. Watch HOAs disappear. Is there anyone on earth who likes HOAs?
Just the people who pay money to live in them.
Even people who live in them.
Presidents love them.
Yeah.
It's their one chance of power.
Oh.
I
like the idea.
I got elected the HOA president once, and I wasn't even there. I was like default, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. There are people who just love the power, and that's not me. But somebody has to do something, and we can talk. If everyone were like Republican, or excuse me, like Representative Massey, I wouldn't be talking about this. If all the representatives were following the actual Constitution, I wouldn't even need to be here. Like we wouldn't even, you probably wouldn't even have a podcast. So why would we talk about
it wouldn't be about this.
Yeah, we'd still have a podcast. Just wouldn't be about this.
So yeah, we wouldn't have, if things weren't going well, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. I don't think. And I'm kind of this is something I don't know that I don't have a good chance of winning. Let's be honest. But I think this could be setting up a run for next time or for someone else. I would like this idea to get spread and not just be with me. If another representative, not just in Utah but in other states that have Republicans that aren't representing them well, let's get someone on board. And it's not just the Democrats. They tend to have people. They tend to do what their people want. That's kind of an interesting side note. I have talked to a number of my neighbors that are Democrat, and they said that this idea resonated with them. And
yeah, I would argue that no party does what their people want. I mean, right now the progressive wing is pissed at Joe. They are pissed at him because he's funding Israel, and so he's got to open himself up for a impeachment because he wants to stop the funding of Israel, which exactly was the thing they impeached Trump for. We'll see if it happens. But so no politicians, which is why I'm a 10th Amendment guy. I think all government should be managed as small as it can be. The federal government has a very small bubble they deal with. Honestly, our Congress could probably meet up once every Congress could meet up once every 2 years. You elect a guy, he goes there, he meets up for 2 weeks, says, is anything changed we need to work our way through? No, he goes home. That's it. Senate meets up once every 6 years. They go there. They say, do we need to write any new laws? No,
Sweet
because all
dreams.
these things can be managed on the state and county level, right?
I
But
believe
Am
their
I
I,
high?
job
I'm
is
I'm
only
with
to
you.
be working for the national level. They're not even supposed to be working for their states. If
No,
we're
that's what
thinking
I'm
about it.
saying. The states deal with all this. Does the Senate need to have a new law come down on us every week?
No,
That's a question.
they
They're
should
doing
have
it
to
every day.
eliminate laws
But
every
does
day.
it have to come down every week? Every day, do we need a new law written on the federal level? No. They should go in there once every 6 years when they're elected. They don't have to rent an apartment there. We'll put them up in a hotel room for 2 days. I'm fine with that. They go in there, do a quick review on what do we have going on? Is there anything pressing? Is our nation falling apart because it hasn't had our legal attention? No? Okay. Peace out, boys. I'm going home.
You'd have to eliminate any money going out of the country. You'd have to make sure our military was funded.
This is a G-rated
Any of the
show.
wars gone.
What do you mean make sure the military's funded? The only thing in the Constitution on military is the U.S. Navy. That's it. Guys, go home and read it for yourselves.
Yeah, but you still need to fund them.
Sure, that's easy. How many boats do we have? That's how many? How many sailors? Okay.
Okay, it's not that easy because you still have to protect our borders, also required in the Constitution.
Yeah, that could probably happen through the states, and it doesn't take what it takes. You know what? You know how you protect the borders?
You're taking his show away from him.
We
and
don't
we're
give
15 minutes.
we don't
past.
give welfare out to people who cross it. Everyone stops crossing it.
Yeah,
It was never a problem before.
I thought drones would work.
To your point, really quickly, I was talking to a gentleman a month or two ago about, and he's very strict, like a very staunch constitutionalist. And I was presenting my idea to him, and he had some objections here and there, and whatever. And I said, how many of the bills coming out are constitutional? Or he said maybe 1% of them. And that's to your point, that because the 10th Amendment says that anything that is the only thing that the federal government should be doing is what is strictly talked about in the Constitution, and anything else is left to the states. And even one of our Supreme Court justices did not understand what the 10th Amendment was. That was eye-opening.
I'm shocked.
That was eye-opening. It was like somebody had to help her save face because she didn't. What's the 10th Amendment? Like what? Just these things that if people truly understood what the Constitution meant and what the federal government is supposed to do versus what the state and local governments can do, things would be completely different. So I'm totally on board with you. I agree with that. I'm just trying to do my little part to get this idea out there. I really appreciate you calling me and contacting me, because this is use this kind of like a springboard to get me going again. So I appreciate that.
Good. Hey, thanks for running.
That's a big deal.
Thanks for throwing your hat in the ring. I mean, it's a tough fight.
Yeah, it's not easy. I can only imagine your wife is probably like, "Are you crazy? This is crazy." But I'm so glad. My hat's off to anyone that puts their name out there, puts themselves out there to actually do something for their fellow man, and I really appreciate that. So you sound like you've really got something there. I'm excited to see how it plays out. I'd really love to see it when you have like a prototype or something and you need somewhere to advertise it. Call us. We want to have you on.
You need somewhere to try it out. We'll see if our county won't put it in.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That would require a vote of the people.
Sure. We'll put it out to a vote of the people.
You can advertise for it.
Yeah.
There will be lots of strings. It should start with the candidate who's elected and actually starts using it. That's how people will vote for it, because that would cost. People have to vote for their method of voting in counties. Yeah, that's how we got mail-in voting.
Okay.
So that could be cool.
But this would just be our county putting it out to get a pulse on what the populace thinks. The populace who cares thinks.
Yeah. We need to get a populace who cares.
Yeah.
That'd be one step in getting a better government.
How would it be? No, the best government is one that you don't have to care about. It will run and it won't abuse you. We don't have that. So instead we
Nobody
have to have
has
this.
that. That's
It's a good point.
impossible. No one has that. Okay. So everybody go to his website.
Yep. TylerMurset.com. It's TylerMurset.com. Check him out. If you like what he's saying, or if you have questions for him, he's got to contact him on there. You've got the donate, everything else. You can dig in deep, got
You have yard signs?
the
in case
breakdown
people
of his
want a yard
information.
sign?
I've got the yard signs designed. I don't have any produced yet, but I can have those in short order.
Okay.
Excellent. So reach out, go to the website and communicate with him, find out more about him. He's an open book, it seems like. I'm sure we could talk to you for hours.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Tyler. You have a good weekend. Have a good everything else going on. Have a good night. And we wish you luck, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good one.